If I've learned anything from relationships and guitar tunings, it's that things become very difficult to navigate when they are open. So today we're going to talk about what I've learned from both and apply them to an open guitar tuning. This one is going to be open D. Alright, now, this is going to be great. You're going to learn a lot through weeks and weeks of my experience. And the way we're going to tune this is D, A, D, F sharp, A, D. Okay? So basically it's a bunch of A's, a bunch of D's, and a single F sharp. Alright? And when you play all of them together, it makes a D major chord. Okay? Now, I've talked a little bit about this tuning in other videos where you can just kind of make the 1, 4, 5 chord and the minor chords, but I want to talk about really grasping an understanding of this. And I'm just going to use one really easy music theory thing, the major scale, spelled out in intervals. Okay? So, all that means is we're going to kind of take each of these individual strings and learn all the notes on them, and it's way easier than you might think. Alright? So let's start on the low D string. This is now a D string, the 6th string. Alright? We can play all the notes in this key, the key of D, by counting it out in intervals. Looks like this. Open D, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Okay? So, open 2, 4, 5, 7, 9, 11, 12. I urge you to really try to get these intervals just under your fingers, right? Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, okay? It's even really easy to take like a super simple fingerstyle pattern, right? I've gone over fingerstyle patterns in my other videos. I talk a lot about it on my Patreon if you guys are interested, check that out. So I'm not going to spend time on the fingerstyle pattern. We're going to talk about just mastering the scale and seeing all the notes within it, right? So even if we just do this very simple fingerstyle pattern and then just go along the lowest string here, it already kind of starts to sound like music, okay? So, just like in an open relationship, we have the major scale. That would be known as the main or the husband in my experience, okay? Now, because there are 3 strings tuned to a D note, rocking out this Taylor 816, by the way. I'm sure they're happy about me talking about open relationships and what is not really a sponsored video. The same intervals apply to the 6th string, the 4th string, and the 1st string. Alright, so open 2, 4, 5, open 2, 4, 5, open 2, 4, 5. Same thing on the high string is going to be on the low string. Okay? So that's what's going on with the main, right? Just seems like a totally great nuclear family. You never know what's going on behind closed doors though, right? Because we've got this pesky little A string. We got 2 of them, right? This is the side man. This is what my specialty is. Never the main, always the side man, all right? The beautiful thing about this is the side man is an A in the key of D, all right? So if we go through those notes in the key of D, D, E, F sharp, G, A, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is the 5th note in the key of D, all right? Now, the relationship between the 1 and the 5 has a very, very important connection, even though those 2 should never meet in some circumstances. But in guitar tuning, it's fine, all right? And we can spell the same intervals out with the sideman's string, okay? So it's the exact same thing with one exception, right? Remember with the main, we went whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. The only thing that's different is that 7th note, right? We can do the same thing with A. Open, whole, whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole. So the only thing that's different is that 7th note, instead of going from 11 to 12, on the main, sideman's 10 to 12. It's got a flat 7, okay? But that flat 7 makes all the importance, right? That's why the flat 7, the Mixolydian mode, always going to be a sideman, right? At face value, they might look the same. They might look like they both have their act together. They both have that kind of, that slim, tall, brown hair, white guy look that could be on a Hallmark Channel movie, but only one of them has a stable job and a career and is a family man, and that's the main, right? So that flat 7 is where you're just kind of a YouTube clown with a little bit of fame under your belt, but really not a stable career, right? That's that flat 7. So if we're kind of like incorporating this into everything we're doing, we can use this on both A strings now, right? So open, a whole step, a half step, whole, half, whole. Okay? So by learning 6 different strings, but really they're all kind of the same thing. Usually they're either a D or an A in the same key. We're learning really essentially every single thing that you can do, but in a different way, right? Now we're thinking of 6 different strings and learning them all individually and then copying what each of those individual strings is, right? We just learned that really that one formula, that intervallic formula, if you will, and then just kind of applied it to do 2 different things. And because we can do that, we can learn all the notes on this string, learn all of them on this string. There's a flat 7, right? We can go low. And then this one, same exact thing, right? So now we can really just start kind of experimenting, right? Experimentation is key. More so when you're the sideman. That's why you step into the picture. Because it can get boring just playing a major all the time. We're just gonna play D major all the time. No, you gotta get that other vibe in, right? So what we can do, maybe let's start putting on top all the notes that we're getting from that one altered with, we can think of it as an altered thing where we just maybe take like the highest 3 notes in this octave, like a, and then maybe start adding and you can add these to anything, right? You can kind of just explore through. Now remember, here is where we kind of part ways. So maybe that's an interesting sound you're going for, but then we kind of get back on track. So I think that's a really cool, interesting way to kind of navigate through an open tuning by just taking these 2 strings. I like changing that root note around on the main right here. So there's the D, the A, the second string there. Playing them together like this kind of gives you a better sense of the picture of what's happening, right? They're just sticking together. Open, a whole step, a half step, a whole step, and then here's where they diverge. Just like that, right? Again, another thing that I like are spaced intervals, and that's something that you can do, especially with the highest strings. Maybe kind of going one apart, because then you can kind of hear the different intervals being added up, right? Me personally, I like major 7 a lot, which is kind of an identity thing, because the sideman doesn't have a major 7 chord in it. It actually has a dominant 7 chord in it. But that's my own identity crisis that I'm working through. I'm not trying to put that on you, right? But what you can do is you could take like, all right, well, there's a C sharp in the key of D. So if I wanted to make a D major 7, I could just add a C sharp on top, right? Now, there are other ways you can find a C sharp. We could count through the A string. A sharp, B, C, C sharp. So that's kind of maybe a more elegant way of finding that same major 7. But really kind of just like adding those melodies on top to, kind of creates really interesting intervals. Just to kind of explore, right? And I think that is the actual best thing about open tunings, is because it gets you out of the things that you normally do. You kind of regain a little bit of that joy from when you first started out a guitar. It's kind of funny when you first start out. It's like your fingers are not cooperating at all, so you're kind of fighting this physicality of it. But there's never a better time for your mind to kind of like just like open up and like explore than when you're first starting out. Because like, oh, this makes sense. You're making those connections. But after you get somewhat proficient in open or standard tuning, you stop making those connections as much, and they kind of solidify into habits. Whether that's a good or a bad thing, that's up to you. So getting into open tuning is something that I highly recommend because you kind of throw those habits out. Maybe you have some finger dexterity from playing in standard all the time, and then you regain the joy of first checking it out. Just like the joy of being like, oh, this open relationship might be a thing. No, it's not. It's not what you think. People can attest to that in the comments, as I'm sure. So thank you for sticking with me on this incredible journey. Let me know if you want to hear any more life stories / advice that I have gathered over years and years of experience. Make sure you check out the Patreon, because then I can maybe someday go from the side man to the main, have some woman make an honest man of me. It's only going to happen through Patreon, so I appreciate your guys' support. Thanks a lot.